Hey g'day, boys and girls, shillers and blokes, my name is Jacob and today I want to share 6 monsters I want to see return in Monster Hunter 6 / Wilds. With a Tokyo Game Show right around the corner bringing us our first extended look at gameplay for the Scarlet Forest and what I also believe to be the reveal of a few returning monsters, I thought now would be the best time to throw some hopes and predictions of my own out into the wild to see how many I get right by the game's release. And one quick thing before I get into my list, these monsters are all listed in the order of release and not my personal preference. As a longtime vet to the Monster Hunter series, it's practically impossible for me to choose just one definitive favourite above all the others. So without any further ado, let's begin. Number 1. Shen Gaoren. From Monster Hunter's 2nd generation, and only ever appearing in said 2nd generation, is the Fortress Crab Shen Gaoren. A gigantic Carapaceon on the same threat level as Elder Dragons. I think it's very badass when traditional early game monster types get powerful endgame counterparts like the Rajang was to the Fanged Beasts Kongolola and Blangonga. Shen Gaoren was exactly that for the Hermitaur and Vizianator, but on a whole other level higher than Rajang, as Shen Gaoren was classified as a siege fight. Like with our other crabs, Shen Gaoren has a monster skull on its back favouring the skull of a Lao Shanglan, an actual Elder Dragon and another of 2nd generation siege fights, both taking place on the town map. Shen Gaoren's hunt was pretty straightforward, but oftentimes boring, as was the case with many of Gen 2's siege fights. The target monsters would largely ignore the hunter and walk down a long series of corridors to a final area where only then can they actually be slain. No matter how much damage you dealt before this last zone, they just cannot die, making most efforts fighting them before reaching here a waste by extending the time it takes to reach the end through repeated staggers. Although this was an easy way to assure part breaks, you just needed to be careful not to overdo it and fight the whole 50 minutes. I don't think I'm really selling Shen Gaoren to anyone here having said all that, but I wasn't trying to, not yet anyway. As Shen Gaoren was back in 2nd gen, it wasn't a very enticing hunt once the spectacle of it all wore off. It's why I think a rework of Shen Gaoren for Wilds would be a fantastic choice as a powerful returning endgame monster over something like the constantly reused Elder Dragon quartet of Teostra, Kushala, Chameleos, and Kirin. Through the spin-off entries like Frontier and Online, we've seen snippets of how Shen Gaoren would work if it chose to fight against the hunters, and I believe it's got huge potential for a hell of a lot more. Imagine this Fortress Crab getting a rework like World's Lunastra, Raging Brachydios, or the Fatalis. Shen Gaoren could be one of the coolest hunts in Wilds by far. Judging from the massive size of the Windward Plains, I think behemoth-sized monsters like Shen Gaoren would fit in nicely. And if every other map has a similar scope, then this opens up the potential for more gigantic monsters like a Cantor, Ulcanlos, and even my beloved Gogmazios to get some of that New World love. But if I had to pick just one of these monsters to return, I definitely have to go with the Shen Gaoren, as it hasn't appeared since its debut in the 2nd generation, outside a single cameo, and I believe is long deserving of a second wind. Number 2. Korapeko. Calling to me from the 3rd generation is the colourful bird wyvern Korapeko. This burb is a really fun early monster hunt mechanically, featuring a variety of nasty attacks that can inflict fire blight or elemental defense down, as well as several songs that will hinder the hunters during battle. The first of these songs is Korapeko's signature ability to mimic the cry of other monsters, calling in anything from a few small jaggies all the way up to a bloody devil joe to help aid it in carting the hunters. Once its reinforcements arrive, the Korapeko will start acting like a hunting horn and attempt to play songs that will buff itself and the assisting monsters, with effects that can increase their attack, defense, stamina, or even heal the monster's HP. You can try interrupting these songs by attacking the Koropeko, and if you're successful, the hunters will receive the buffs instead. It's the Koropeko's unique abilities that made hunting it so incredibly fun and left many of us 3rd generation hunters with fond memories for this colourful burb. And that's why I'm quite surprised the Koropeko has never returned in a mainline game outside the 3rd generation of Monster Hunter. Not even in World or Rise, where a lot of 3rd gen monsters made a return. Just imagine how cool, or rather how terrifying it would have been to hunt a Koropeko who summons both a Deviljho and a Betelgeuse to kick your ass. I'm hoping Wilds is the entry that marks the long-awaited return of the Koropeko. The luring pods hunters can use in Wilds remind me a lot of Koropeko's mimicry song, and I'd even go as far as to expect we use some new Koropeko material to craft these pods. Just imagining the colossal mess a Koropeko would cause in Wilds by calling in multiple herds of large monsters has me eager to see whether or not this burb will make the final cut. Number 3. Duramboros. Also from the 3rd generation comes the Tail Hammer Wyvern Duramboros. Subscribers to this channel would know that I love the hammer, so it should come as no surprise I'd also love this hammer-wielding moving mountain as well. The Duramboros is a truly large monster by large monster standards, but despite its huge size, the Duramboros is a fast attacker with a big area of damage thanks to its imposing size. My mate the Duramboro can swing its tail around to use a personalized version of the hammer's spinning bludgeon, and also send itself flying up through the air with a Silkbind impact crater. Duramboros is a very fun hunt, and I'm not just saying that because it's also the only monster that I can break the tail off using a hammer. Alright, I'm not that biased. Or maybe I am. I was rather disappointed that Duramboros didn't return in Iceborne, since the Banboro was basically a Duramboros just without the fancy tail attacks, which led me to foolishly believe my Tail Hammer Wyvern Pow made the cut simply because they shared near identical models. This is why I'm hoping Duramboros will find itself in the roster for Wilds. I think it'll be pretty cool if you could be ambushed mid-hunt Valstrax style by a Duramboros crashing into everyone with a swing of its mighty tail from another section of Wild's map. But in all seriousness, Duramboro is a unique monster that complements the roster of any game it finds itself in. Number 4. Zamtrios. Next is the monster shark Zamtrios from the 4th generation, which in all honesty really should have been included in Monster Hunter Rise. Seriously, it should be criminal to include juvenile monsters and not their fully grown counterparts, which was something Rise and Sunbreak is guilty of about a dozen times over. Zemites grow into fully grown Zamtrios incredibly fast, so GOG only knows how these little sharks didn't overrun the Frost Islands, but I digress. Zamtrios was a really cool fight from the 4th gen, pun intended, and a mechanically fun hunt at that. This big shark will alternate between 3 different phases, going from its neutral form to a more powered up ice armor mode, and lastly inflating like a balloon to squash hunters before eventually deflating back to normal and repeating the process. If I were to use Monster Hunter Stories terms, then the Zamtrios hunt switches between technical, speed, and power focused attacks as the hunt progresses. Zamtrios also boasts the ability to inflict both water and ice blights that will wreak havoc on hunters' stamina management and also the snowman status ailment. However, 5th generation dropped this snowman ailment, so it's unlikely to return, at least as it was here in Gen 4. During each phase, Zamtrios brings something new for hunters to adapt against. It's because of this that I find the Zamtrios to be a really impressive mid-game monster to have in the series, and I can only imagine how much better this fight would be in a game like Wilds. Also, you might not know that the Zamtrios is categorized as an amphibian. the same monster type as Wild's Chatacabra. I'm not saying that this confirms Zemturos for Wilds or anything, but I'm hoping all this monster type diversity we've seen so far in the early game monsters preludes to a balanced roster later in the game, and not another Wyvern Hunter World situation. Although we're already doing way better than World with only the 6 confirmed monsters in Wilds. Last thing I'll add about the Zemturos is it has a tiger-striped sandshark subspecies that drops the ice armor for a more aggressive inflated form. I hope if normal Zemturos lands itself in Wild's roster that we also get the tiger stripe just to have a situation where Zemturos can go bowling down a sand dune into a group of hunters riding their sacrets. Number 5, Najarala. Another 4th gen monster here with the twisting snake wyvern, Najarala. And it took me a lot of restraint not to embarrass myself by introducing the Najarala to the tune of a Lady Gaga song. Anyway, Najarala is the series' one and only snake wyvern. No, I don't count the recategorized Renobra, and Dalamador is an elder dragon. In a hunt, the Najarala will use its serpent-like body to the fullest with wide sweeping attacks and long-reaching lunges. Najarala can ensnare hunters by wrapping its body around them, only allowing a few short seconds to escape, wherein the Naja can also bite at the fleeing hunters, paralyzing them so it can easily land its ensnared finisher. The scales on Naja's tail can be fired at hunters or the ground around them, creating dangerous AoEs that will explode when the Najarala roars, for a guaranteed stun on any hunters hit by these scale blasts. I think the Najarala hunt is incredibly fun. It's a monster that uses its size and movement advantages over the hunter quite well, and that was only on the 3DS hardware. With how far this series has come today, I want to see a revamped Najarala in Wild style. I believe it has the potential to still give hunters an equally hard time on their sacrets by using its long, twisty body. I can just imagine a chase similar to what we see in the second trailer with the Balaharas. Monster Hunter Wilds logo features 2 serpents in the design, and as of the time of this video's release, we don't know what they represent, if anything at all. But the existence of these serpents implies some importance of snake wyverns in Wilds, so I just hope Capcom doesn't forget about our original twisting snake wyvern who paved the path for whatever / if ever these snakes turn out to be. Number 6, Celtis plus Celtis Queen. Yeah, look, okay, this might count as cheating by adding 2 monsters into the 6th place, but 4th generation's Piercing Beetle Celtis and Heavy Beetle Celtis Queen are a package deal, and what a package they are. Let's start with the Celtis. This little guy is a very early game monster and is one of the first large monster hunts in Monster Hunter 4. Its attacks are fairly simple, but still enough for hunters learning the ropes to struggle against. And the fact it's flying around everywhere makes it slightly more challenging than the standard early game monster hunts, which are typically all grounded. If Celtis makes it into the Wilds, I could see this fight potentially as a tutorial monster for teaching Wild's new focus mode, since you'll want to be aiming all of your attacks upwards to try and hit this pesky beetle. The most annoying thing the Celtis can do is spray hunters with an acid that inflicts defense down. This ailment isn't too bad when facing Celtis on its own, but when you're also up against the Celtis Queen, well, now you're in trouble. I hope you are carrying adamant seeds. Celtis Queen is a late game monster and almost always accompanied by a standard Celtis, unless it's been defeated, in which case she'll summon another Celtis after a short duration. This heavy queen is built like a tank and she hits like one too. Celtis Queen has many hard-hitting attacks and one attack in particular that inflicts hunters with one of my least favorite ailments, Soiled, also known as Shit Blight, that prevents you from using almost all of your inventory items. And as any good couple would do, the Queen Celtis can mount the regular Celtis on top of her in battle as if they were Megazords, and by doing this they can work in tandem to attack the hunters. Celtus acts like a gun turret atop his queen, spraying defense down, inflicting acid at hunters, or as a jetpack flying the larger beetle into the struggling hunters. It's no wonder their armor sets look like mechas, because these two are one. And their subspecies, the Desert Celtus and Desert Celtus Queen, have the complete opposite relationship to their normal counterparts. The Desert Celtus Queen is an abusive bitch that will pick up the poor male Celtus and fire it at the hunters in a powerful attack that instantly kills the Desert Celtus on contact. Wild's monster pack / herd system makes now the perfect time for Celtus and Celtus Queen to make a return. These two Neopterans were practically made for a mechanic like this. Having multiple Celtus fly around and guard the Celtus Queen will make perfect sense during the hunt, and something that's now possible without the 3DS hardware limitations. I reckon this new version of the Celtus duo would be a lot of fun to have in Wilds, so here's hoping they get added. And that was 6, or technically 7 monsters I'd like to see return in Monster Hunter Wilds. I was going to add more as honorable mentions here at the end, but this was going to drag the video on too long, so I plan to make another video discussing those shortly. These mentions all had a caveat or two as to why I didn't want them in Wilds, but would be happy if they were added, so please subscribe for that video next time. I'll also be streaming the Capcom segment of Tokyo Game Show if anyone's interested in what my mates and I have to say reacting to that. There'll also be a new trailer most likely revealed during the show, so expect another My Thoughts on Wilds video after that. Anyway, if you're still here at the end, then cheers. Your support goes a long way of helping my channel grow, so please consider liking the video if you liked it, or dislike it if you didn't. I'm open to dialogue in the comments, so please share your thoughts on my picks for Wilds returning monsters and what would you also like to see. And subscribe for more content like this. Alright, that's all. Have a good one, people. Cheers.